International Association for Peacekeeping Training Centers is the largest organization that brings together peacekeeping training centers from around the world. It's an incredible platform for the harmonization of training material, for developing new ideas and coming up with new initiatives that would fill training gaps and respond to what is essentially a very dynamic and changing nature of conflict, which puts additional and new requirements for the peacekeepers. And through the collaboration of members of the institution, of the association, the members are capable of responding to these needs. We decided to step in and to offer our service as the Secretariat because we thought, number one, that it is an important platform on the international level. Egypt, being one of the top troop and police contributing countries, obviously had an interest in being a part of the deliberations about the future of peacekeeping, not only on the normative and policy level, but also when it comes to training and capacity building activities. And right now, it actually, our position as the Secretariat coincides with Egypt's chairmanship of the African Union, where we are trying to play an important role in advancing the partnership between the United Nations and the African Union. As you probably know, not only that most of the big peacekeeping missions are in Africa, but half the list of the top troop and police contributing countries are also African countries. And that's, when you put all of these reasons together, it made for a very strong case for an active involvement by the Cairo Center in the activities of the EAPTC. Leadership in peacekeeping operations is one of the most important and critical issues, to the extent that it was highlighted in consecutive reports. It was brought up and highlighted by the high-level independent panel on peace operations, which reviewed peacekeeping operations and submitted recommendations for the Secretary General of the United Nations. It is part of Action for Peacekeeping initiative that was announced by the current Secretary General. Success or failure of peacekeeping missions depends obviously on many factors, but leadership on all levels, on the strategic level in New York, including the Secretariat and the Security Council, in the field on the tactical and operational level, is a very important issue. And here, the EAPTC, as well as regional organizations like the European Association, has, I think, a very important role to play in providing new training and new material that responds to the changing environment. Cairo Center is also part of two other efforts that are taking place in order to update our training material. One is the Challenges Forum, which brings together leading organizations from around the world to basically address the leadership gaps, if you will. And the other one is the African Association of Peacekeeping Training Centers. Cairo Center hosted the Senior Mission Leaders Training of the UN back in 2016. We hosted two AU Senior Mission Leaders Training, the last of which was in 2014. And that's all testimony to the importance of the issue of leaders and leadership and preparing leaders to carry out the very complicated tasks right now and its variety of and multiplicity of factors, dealing with the host nation, dealing with the various stakeholders of a peace agreement, dealing with the Secretariat back in New York, and dealing with the Security Council. That is not an easy task, and our leaders should be prepared to carry out these activities. Our focus is on what we call a continuum of peace interventions that starts with conflict prevention through mediation, through peacekeeping, through peace building. The reality that we face on the ground is one that requires such a continuum. We cannot deal anymore with peacemaking, and peace building as in silos. And that's why we have been heavily engaged in the three reviews that took place in 2015, the review of the peace building architecture, the review of the peacekeeping architecture, as well as the review of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And the one strong message among many that came out of these three reviews was the imperative for conflict prevention. preventing conflict not only from happening but also from relapsing, which is very much in line with Egypt's approach to dealing with crisis, that we need to deal with them as a continuum. We need also to break the silos between the humanitarian work of the United Nations and regional organizations, development work, and peace and security. They cannot anymore work separately or in separation. And all of these streams of work of international and regional organizations need to come together. As the current chairman of the African Union, this is very much part and parcel of the priorities of the Egyptian chairmanship. So if you look at the list of priorities that were identified by Egypt, you will find one is how do we build structures within the African Union to prevent the conflicts from happening in the first place. Another is the operationalization of the African Union post-conflict reconstruction and development policy, and linking that to our efforts in peacekeeping. There is now an ongoing discussion about reviewing the modalities of deployment and the doctrine of the African standby force. And all of these discussions, we think, need to happen in tandem, and they need to happen at the same time so that the outcome of these discussions and the recommendations present us with a framework that is, number one, comprehensive, and number two, is mutually reinforcing. We cannot, as I said, talk about working on peacemaking and conflict prevention separate from our work on peacekeeping and on peace building. One of the ramifications of what's happening on the global level is that we're working with less and less resources. So on one hand, you have larger and bigger challenges. And on the other hand, we have less resources to address these challenges. The only solution, in our opinion, for us to be capable to leverage our minimal resources to address the larger challenges is to work collaboratively and to basically leverage the limited resources that we have to address the issues that we are dealing with. And that's why, again, for a country like Egypt, as the chairman of the African Union, the issue of advancing UN-EU partnership is key to the various work streams that we are advancing, be it conflict prevention, peacemaking, peacekeeping, or peace building. Egypt is an Arab and an African country. We come from a region that is, ripe with problems, unfortunately, and we have a lot of experiences in dealing with them. Conflux Center also sits in a very interesting region of the world, and I think that we can leverage resources together. This provides us with an opportunity for an exchange of lessons learned, of experiences, but also an opportunity to look to the future and see what are the types of things and the collaborative work that we can do together moving forward.